Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Joe Davis from Southern New Hampshire University, CJ 300. We're going to talk about Milestone 3, and that'll be methodologies. Okay, let's take a look at 4 items from the guidelines and the rubric. It's very important that you make sure you understand everything in those guidelines, the instructions. I think there are 5 steps in the instructions. Make sure you understand the rubric. If you don't, send me an email, text me, and I'll give you all the help I can. The next is this assignment's going to be based primarily upon your Module 4 paper, 4-1, where you did your literature analysis. So if you had trouble with that or there's suggestions I made to improve, get those revised before you start this. If you had trouble with Milestone 1 and 2 and you need to make revisions, get caught up on those, because otherwise you'll just never get through this final milestone. Okay, there are 5 items in the instructions for you to follow. Make sure you follow them all, and then make sure you've completed all 4 critical elements in the rubric. The sample paper only has 1 article. It is just a sample, a template to show you how to do it. It utilizes headings, which isn't necessarily the scholarly way of doing it, but there's nothing wrong with it. I think that will help you make sure you meet all of the critical elements, because each heading is a critical element. There are notes in blue ink that tell you where I found the information, and then I'll give you also a copy of the peer-reviewed article that I used for the sample, and they're highlighted in there so you can see where to look in your own papers, what it ought to look like, or where you can find it. And then finally a copy of the peer-reviewed article with everything highlighted in yellow. Okay, next up, let's take a look at the sample paper. Okay, here we go. Here's the sample paper. As you can see, my instructions to you are in the blue ink, and it tells you all about the same things that we just talked about. Here's the article citation, Holmes's article, the same one that I used, same ones that you should be using if you had already used peer-reviewed articles for your prior assignments. Okay? The first question or the first instruction, the first thing you need to talk about is the research question for this article. And if you look on page 987 of the article, you'll find that it says research question. Does early IPV exposure occurring between birth and 3 compared with no exposure affect the development of aggressive behavior trajectories over a 5-year period? That should sound familiar, since that's what we talked about in the earlier video mini lecture for the small group discussion this week. Okay, so then it talks about the research issue in this paper focused on the impacts of witnessing criminal acts, because it wanted to know the criminological theory. Well, the paper isn't about the criminological theories that cause one spouse or partner to abuse physically or psychologically the other partner. The article isn't about that. However, you could answer the question, or I was able to answer it, by looking at the dependent and control variables, because they provided enough information about the participants, the victims actually. And that is, the social disorganization theory seemed to fit because of disruption in community and social organizations, several stressors, including the economic constraints which are mentioned. There's also drug and alcohol abuse listed. So that gives you an idea. Now, where did I find all that? I found it in Module 2 in the overview. Okay, Module 2 overview. So please don't waste your time Googling criminological theories and all that stuff. No, just go to Module 2, the overview, and they're listed. Now, if you don't find in the 5 or 6 that are there the one that you're looking for, there is an article in the reading section that'll give you, I think there are 13 more theories. So that's all you need to do on it. Okay, here are the answers to the rest of the questions about why was quantitative research used, and there's the reasons that I thought the support was there. I found them on pages 987, 988. The data collection, when was it collected and how was it collected? There's the answer to that. Come down here to methodology, and we're going to talk about validity. Part of validity is that how did they evaluate their data, and they used nationally recognized checklists and scales. Okay, and then the ethical considerations. They explained to the participants what was going on, and it's an 8-year longitudinal study. Okay, so it would be ethical to tell the people that going in. Let me go back to the top for just a second. That should give you something to work from as a sample paper with one article. Okay, here is the actual article in PDF form. You can see the citation up at the top, Journal of Child Psychology and Psychiatry. This is what would be the abstract, and as we scroll down a little bit, make sure I'm not missing anything in that left-hand column. Here is the present study and the theoretical framework for that present study, and it explains all about it. Okay, the framework for it. Here is the research question and hypothesis. That's exactly what one of the questions are, and you should be able to find it this easily in virtually every peer-reviewed article. So here it says the specific research question is, and there it is highlighted and underlined. Here's something on methods. Talks about how the data was collected over here, about the 5 waves. They didn't use one of the waves because the independent and dependent variables were not measured at that time, so they just threw that part of the research out. Very ethical. Here are the measures of aggressive behavior in a child, and here's what they use. They use the aggressive behavior problem scale of the child behavior checklist. Okay, so it's an approved and accepted, a widely used one. Same thing for exposure to intimate partner violence. There's such a thing as the conflict tactics scale. And here are the control variables. The control variables for the baseline are here in table 1. So these are all control variables, okay, which means you can examine the 1 or 2 or 3 of those, that sort of thing. Okay, so when we come down here on the left-hand column, data analysis talks about using the latent growth curve modeling. Don't worry that you have to understand it completely. You just have to know what it is and that it was applied. Okay, when we come back up to the top of column 2, there's more explanation of it. Don't worry yourself about all of these mathematical formulas. Frankly, I think that's way ahead of an undergraduate degree in research methods. This is actually the model, a curve model as it's called, to go with the curve data. Anyway, that shows the relationships. Don't worry about all this stuff. All the n's and the d's and the 1's and the 2's and the y's. Don't worry about that. Okay, here is just more information about the results of it, the discussion of it. There should be something down here somewhere about limitations. What was limited? What did they do wrong? What could they have done better? Okay, that wasn't asked in this particular part of the paper. So now let me go back to the top so you can see it. That's what a peer-reviewed scholarly article should look like. I hope this helps you. If you have questions, please let me know right away, because we're at week 5. This is the last milestone. You're going to get a week, 10 days to write your final paper, and then we're finished. So we're done in that. All right? Keep those cards and letters coming.